There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Imagine a time where Jean Charest is being seriously considered as the next leader of the Conservative Party. And that time is almost 2020. It is time for the Big Five. This is Twilight Zone stuff. And on the Twilight Zone edition of the Big Five, two of my favorites. Trudie Mason, you're looking fantastic today, by the way.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Love my Christmas sweater.
Yeah, I love it.
And always fantastic is Egbert Gaye. Hi, Egbert.
Yeah.
Of course, you know him as the founder and editor of Montreal Community Contact. Guys, when I heard this news that Jean Charest, he's good to go, you know, and Thomas Mulcair, you hear him on CJAD every day at 5:10, and he's like, he's got money, and people are on board, and this could be for real. I was like, wait a minute. What year are we? You know, it was the last time Jean Charest was the leader of the Progressive Conservatives was 1998. I don't know, call me old-fashioned or new-fashioned, but I would like new names coming out there. I don't know. I don't, and I like Jean Charest, by the way. I'm not one of those people that looks back at Jean Charest years and go, I actually like Jean Charest. I thought he was a decent premier. I know, corruption, all these things that can come out. But I like the guy. But I don't get this at all. Do you get this? Yeah.
You know what? Such is desperation. You have a political party.
Whose desperation?
The Conservative Party, they are desperate for some sort of stability. You're looking at a guy who was 40-something years old, the old leader, the outgoing leader, 40-something years old. He could not express properly opinions on simple issues like same-sex marriages, on a woman's right to choose. He just could not inspire a nation of young and up-and-coming people. He couldn't inspire them. So here's a political party who's saying we can go for experience. We can go for a guy who's tried and tested. Jean Charest is an amazingly capable politician. He's a smart man. He knows Canada inside out.
Agree with all of those things. Agree.
I agree with you that he's yesterday's guy.
Yeah.
He's yesterday's guy. Those guys are 40-something years old. You know, Jagmeet and the other Justin and Shay, they were 40-something year old. And they, you know, we have new issues. We have a new Canada, you know, and I understand the desperation in the Conservative Party. Give Peter MacKay a call or Lisa Raitt and go forward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can call it desperation when the party is desperately casting about for a candidate that will appeal across the country and will be able to relate to Westerners, will be able to relate to Quebecers in their own language. You know, some of the candidates that you might like Peter MacKay, if he can't function in French in Quebec, if he can't talk to Francophones in New Brunswick, if he can't talk to Francophones in Manitoba, you know, that's going to be a strike against him. And I think that this is something that does bear looking at. And when you look at the rest of the field, you know, I might not put Jean Charest at the top of the list, but I think he has some of the attributes that I like about some of the other candidates, like Bernard Lord, the former premier of New Brunswick. Yeah. And there's a Montreal businessman now whose name is escaping me, who I also think would be, he has like an English first name and an English first name and Francophone last name. So I think that it's a consideration. Charest himself, according to these sources who are talking to reporters, number one concern is national unity. Right. I think he could play into that well. He can talk to anybody, and he has experience at the federal level talking to anybody. And I think we don't understand here in Quebec that the whole corruption thing that has been dogging the Liberal Party from his era for years and years and years now, that gets zero play elsewhere.
But in Quebec, if you want to go for what they got 10 seats in the last election, the Conservatives, and I think the election before that they got 12. If you want to appeal to voters in outside of the urban areas of Quebec, I don't know if Jean Charest is the guy.
Well, and you're right about that. Look, what the conservatives need is inner look. They have to come different. They got to figure it out. They have to change their perception on Canadian politics and figure out the issues. I think that deep and incisive look that they have to take, I don't think Jean Charest is the guy to lead that kind of conversation. I think it's a new conversation, and they should lean on him as a sage advisor. But no. Leadership now calls for something different. We'll
talk about Quebec's new minimum wage, or how it's going to be increased in short order in a few moments. But first, I want to quickly talk about SNC Lavalin, okay? As it ends, they plead guilty. I don't know if you want to call it a slap on the wrist or whatever, but it's resolved, right?
Right.
The markets are very happy. It's resolved, and it seems like if Justin Trudeau hadn't done anything, if he literally had done nothing, and it plays out like this, boy, it would have saved him a lot of grief over the last year or so.
Exactly, but it's not a big deal. I mean, SNC is getting a pretty significant hit. $200 million is significant. They have a couple of years that they can't bid for government contracts, at least that department. And I think we have to forget the ideological divide. The real deal here is remembering and I'm not defending a corporation, but the fact that we have 2,000 jobs that are on the line, we have to be mindful of that. We have to be mindful that any government is going to lean on the side of jobs and lean on the side of the political implications that Quebec is involved in this thing.
Well, I think it does show that they should have left well enough alone. They should have listened to Jody Wilson-Raybould when she, as Justice Minister, was telling them, listen, just leave it to the prosecutors. Because in the end, I favor economic penalties for economic crimes. And I do think for the people who dismiss over $200 million as a slap on the wrist, it ain't. It's supposed to be a
lot. It's their profit, basically, for a long time.
It was all their profit on the Libyan projects, plus an almost similar amount in kind of penalties. So I think it's significant for a corporation if the goal is to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think maybe the message is you do that again and, for goodbye to any money that you might make by paying out bribes, and I think that that's useful. But even Wilson-Raybould says, you know what, justice has been served here. They should have just let it unfold, and this is what you get. And I think it's adequate. There's also 2 criminal cases involving executives who were involved in that, and to me, that's a bonus.
And boy, Jody Wilson-Raybould definitely reason to gloat this morning as well.
She handled it bad. Also, she did a lot of bad things along the way that she could have, made this thing a little smoother. So,
all right,
but she's moved into her new office, Egbert. Everything is
exactly.
okay.
There you go. After 2 weeks.
All right, back here on the Big Five. I just did get a few messages about Jean Charest, and I just want to read a few of them before we move on. Jean Charest is Canada's Joe Biden. That's one I got. Now, I'll say this. I think Jean Charest a lot more quicker than old Joe. Also, you want to smell Jean Charest's hair as opposed to Joe Biden smelling your hair. Difference there. Jean Charest saved Quebec in 2003. Hopefully, he can save Canada from Trudeau. And one texter's got some qualms with me. I don't understand your political views. Jean Charest is an experienced politician, fluent in English and French, and an intelligent, business-savvy leader. I agree with all those things. I think Jean Charest is awesome.
Those are not
As
issues,
I said,
though.
exactly.
Those are not issues today. Today, we have to look at the environment. We have to look at politicians who are aware of how to deal with new technology and new energy issues. And it's not that old thing.
And don't tell me conservatives can't find a bilingual, charismatic, young person in this
Mark
entire
Mulroney,
country.
who's going to be on the wings waiting.
Yeah.
Well, why does it have to be young? Why are we ageist in politics all of a sudden in Canada? That was never supposed to matter here.
We're young in thoughts.
I think what it goes to is Egbert's point is, who are you up against? You're up against Justin Trudeau. You're up against Jagmeet Singh. I mean, I think that's what happens. Because, if I go south of the border, I'll take Bernie Sanders. I like the guy. He's old. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think Joe's the worst candidate in the world either. Okay, let's move on here. Do you make minimum wage? Are you listening to me and you make minimum wage? Well, good news. Quebec's minimum wage is going up. A couple ways to look at this. Matt Guite, the producer here, tongue-in-cheek, he wrote this. It's like, what should Quebec's poor do with an extra 60 cents an hour? Okay, like it's a pittance, because you can look at it that way. But if you crunch the numbers, 60 cents an hour, let's say you work 35 hours a week, that's around $1,100 a year. $20 a week, $1,100 a year. It's a 4.8% increase. Now just think about it this way. If your boss came up to you today and say, I'm giving you a 4.8% raise, you'd be pretty happy. How do you look at this boost to $13.10 an hour? Do you look at it with the glass half full, or do you look at it as the glass half empty?
I'm looking at it as a glass that, that doesn't have anything in it. Look, what it does is keep poor people entrenched among the working poor. And you want to get people out of poverty. You don't want to entrench them. The way you get people out of the working poor is looking at $15 and more per hour. That's the way people are going to have, like Trudie would say, a chicken in their pot. Mm-hmm. The thing is, people have to eat. Kids are still going to school hungry. Canada has 1.2 million people who are living in poverty. Although the Liberals are boasting that they got 900,000 people out of poverty, we still have almost a million people who are living in poverty.
But this is going to help those people.
No. $15 an hour is going to help them. This is playing that slow game and keeping people entrenched in poverty. It doesn't mean anything in the final countdown to how, that annual thing is going to look like, how your annual table and budget and food basket.
Egbert,
I want more money in families' hands.
$13.10 an hour in Quebec is way more purchasing power and higher standard of living than $15 in Ontario. I'm just saying.
You're 100% correct about that, but we cannot make it a race to the bottom. Mm-hmm. We have to make it that we want to lift people out of poverty. You want to get families. Kids are going to school hungry. Mm-hmm. In this amazingly rich country, people are going to school hungry. People can't making choices between eating and taking medicine and silliness like that. No. You have to have the political will to lift people out of poverty, and that's what they're not doing.
Well, I think that you have to. I have empathy for people who are in this situation because our society has changed, and with the rise of the service sector, a lot of people are, shall I say, condemned to earn minimum wage or close to minimum wage for their entire working career. It's no longer just a stepping stone to something better. People end up in jobs like that for a very, very long time, and I still think it's not a living wage. The unions had wanted, $18 an hour, and then they realized that was an unrealistic ask, so they dropped it down to $15, and we're still nowhere near there. Yes, it's true that at a lot of corporations, 5% is more than double what employees are being offered. In some corporations, they haven't even offered that cost of living in years, and people are losing ground to inflation every year. So yeah, 4 point whatever it is hefty. But still, it doesn't get people closer to really being able to afford to live. I don't think we're accelerating fast enough. I don't want to overwhelm particularly small businesses by having a huge jump right to 15 or right to 18 or whatever. I think that's counterproductive. But I think we have to start inching their way. And the other question I have is, why do tip earners only get 40 cents an hour if the other workers are getting 60 cents an hour? What is the assumption there?
I guess, but percentage-wise, because the minimum wage is lower for tip earners, so I guess percentage-wise, it's probably the same thing. It's probably around a 5% increase for them too. Right?
But honestly, when you're earning $10 an hour,
I know. But if you go into any restaurant and you ask the people in the back of the house who don't get the tips, and you talk to them about the people who are getting the tips, the waitresses and the servers, they're probably saying they're way better off anyways, right?
But isn't there an assumption there that tips are rising with the cost of inflation? Are people tipping more? Is that? I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Listen, I think there is still runway to go. But if you're going to have a progression here where every single increase in the minimum wage is going up by that 4.8%, that 5%. If that continues to happen, and the previous government and the current CAQ government has both said, this will be the course of the way. We're not going to do a massive increase, but if we keep going in this progression, I think it's a good thing. I don't want to denigrate something that's actually good news.
Well, it is not good news. If you're going to have good news, would be people being able to say, "Look, I'm making a significant step out of poverty. $15 is the minimum layer that we can look at. We can't say that. Look, let's take the next 3 or 4 years to bring it to $15 an hour, and that's what it's going to take. It's just too much. It's too long, and it's really no commitment on the part of government.
From the point of view of businesses, what I would suggest is, if you can see the point of view of businesses struggling to maintain a profit margin with rising manpower costs, I think as a society, we're going to have to start asking ourselves, what do we want? A well-paid workforce, or will we continue to demand the ability to get a burger at a drive-through window at 3 a.m. from every place we want to go?
Yeah.
Or are we willing to settle for businesses saving money by closing overnight? Grocery stores that maybe close at 9 instead of 10, because out my way, all the grocery stores are open till 10 at night. On a Monday evening. Why is that? Maybe we will have to, as consumers, pull in our horns, our expectations, and allow businesses to save a little money so that they can actually pay the workers they have better.
Okay, always look at people, though. Always look at the people that are going to man that counter, man that drive-through thingy. They are the ones that you have to look at, and they're the ones you got to gauge. Why are they out there working for $10, $12 an hour?
All right, guys, I got to move this along. Let's talk. I want to talk about this because I think we're going to keep this going with our listeners at 9:30. Should a woman be allowed to meet up with the person who received her dead husband's organs, or is it that person's prerogative to remain anonymous? Got the story of this woman, and her husband died on December 8th. Linda Bouchard is her name, and she posted to social media. She's like, I want to find who got the organs. And, social media and crowdsourcing and that kind of stuff, they actually found someone who got a donation on the same day that her husband died, right? So they're trying to put those two things together. But, of course, Transplant Quebec won't confirm anything. That's the policy, right? So what do you think, guys? Should, a grieving widow be allowed to give a hug to the person that received her husband's organs? Or, you know what? You got to think about whoever's getting these organs. If they don't want to, be known, that kind of stuff, that's their prerogative. What do you think here?
Too much emotions involved. Too much. You got to be careful that, this woman who wants to meet the recipients, she's coming there with all kinds of expectations that her husband is helping prolong and uplift the life of an individual. She might meet this person and find some sort of letdown. She might not. She might have biases as to who she wanted her husband's organs to go to.
Yeah.
Those sort of things you have to take into consideration. You have to take into consideration that the recipient would feel overwhelming guilt meeting this person whose ultimate sadness give them a new lease on life. It's too much emotions. I think it should be controlled, and I'm not sure where I stand on it, but, when it comes to emotional overload, I think you should, take the easy way out and, just avoid them meeting.
I think this is a sensitive subject. I have a friend going through this now who was the recipient of a donation and who, even a number of years after receiving the donation, still finds herself not psychologically ready to know anything about the donor.
Right.
She's just not ready. And, maybe one day she will be, and she'll approach that positively. And she was told that it would have to be a mutual thing. That the donor would also have to agree to. This was a living donor. This was not a deceased donor. So it would have to be a mutual thing. And then if they both agreed, they'd get together. I think that's the only way to handle it. I do not think that you have a right to know against the wishes of anyone else. People have privacy surrounding their medical information. People have a right not to be accosted. People have a right not to be shaken down, which is something else that I can see maybe happening with people of ill intent. Absolutely.
Well, I'm looking at the guilt part.
Or, I want an emotional relationship with you because you have my son's kidney.
She, by the way, she had to agree to the donations, right? Because she's the spouse.
Yeah.
She had to agree to the donations, and as she posted online, she says, this would be the greatest gift to know who got these organs.
But I'm sure
and
the guy agreed before he
died. It would allow
died.
me to deal with my grief, is what she says.
Yeah, but
I
that's,
think,
you know.
I think she's a little too demanding there. I think the greatest gift is knowing that her husband's organs went to other people.
Absolutely.
That's the I don't think she has a right to the details about who, what, where, when, why, how many kids does he have? Does he deserve it? Is he a recovering
Is he
drug
a black
addict?
guy?
You know, and
you cannot tell what kind of biases she's going to bring into the relationship, and the guilt that you're going to impose on the recipient. You know, it's not worth it.
Yeah,
it's not worth it.
Who'd you vote for in the last election? What? Anyways, okay, one last thing, guys. Do you remember Marlene Jennings?
Yeah.
Remember how she used to be on the show?
Yeah.
And she'd come on, she would pine
She's
on
a
all
good
this
friend
kind
of
stuff.
mine.
Yeah, Marlene's the best.
She's my girl.
Marlene is the best.
She's in charge of the police now.
Well, here's the thing. Marlene apparently is the only English person the CAQ government knows. They only know her, right?
that's why she's the trustee at the MSB at the moment.
So she's the trustee now at the MSB, but now she just got named. Okay, this committee's 5 people, and she's one of them. And it's a committee that the Quebec government just announced to examine the erosion of public trust in police. Like, we need a committee to figure out why there's an erosion of public trust. But isn't it there's a couple ways we can go with this, but I find that so hilarious that she's great. She's well deserving. But you know what? Like, don't they know? Does the CAQ government know any other Anglos? I mean, that's the first thing I said.
More than that, I think Marlene has her hands filled with that school board thing. I think
she's going to be great by then.
That's only for 6 months, and these hearings are supposed to last a year.
I know, but come on, 6 months out of a year, Trudie.
You know what? I'm glad they chose her, because she's going to give them hell. You give them hell.
Yeah, she will give them hell. That's for sure. That's a good part about it. But you know what it does? It means that there are a lot of people who are involved in this issue of police relationship with communities and Quebecers that could have been, they also.
I, for one, believe when it comes to police trust, we need more commissions, hearings, and committees. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, great panel, guys. Trudie Mason, Egbert Gaye, you guys are the best.